So will it run? Stay tuned and all will be revealed. Good evening everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. Now I am going to talk about how I'm going to go about making these trains move, what adaptations I've made to the Class 350 motor from Farish, and I'll show you that shortly. But I do want to update you on what has happened to the body shells and a potential chassis, as you can see here. Now, I have gone ahead and modified the front end. This bit here, where the Delna coupling is, and these two buffers, I suppose, were not deep enough. So I've gone ahead and added that with the extra detail down the side. And also I've put this guard or snow, it's not a snow plough, I'm not totally sure. But nevertheless, I've added one of those to both units. You can see that there. And then painted the end of that yellow. So you can see, hopefully, they look a little bit more accurate. They were just moulded to the basic shell or the cab end, and they stopped around about there before. So I've added this extra bit now. But I've also gone ahead and made these chassis. Now, I'll be honest, from what I can see from pictures, the instrument or the battery situation or the boxes underneath seem exactly the same on each unit. So all three carriages have got exactly the same. So I've gone ahead and printed these two connected to the chassis and the bogie mounts. And again, like I said, I'll show you the middle coach shortly. But as you can see, I've put this like lip on the edge. And the reason for that, this bit goes to the back. That will slot in kind of like that. And I can actually press it in and it won't go any further. That lip rests against the edge of the body shell and stops it from moving in, which has worked really, really well. Whether I glue it in, I don't know at the moment. I might. So I've gone ahead and made some interiors. Now, they're not perfect yet, and I will need to touch them up a little bit, but basically the Transpennine interior, as far as I can tell from pictures, is this rather quite snazzy white and blue. So I've gone ahead and made that. That will then be glued to the interior like that, and then added inside. There we are. So you can see it's sitting about right. Well, I think it is anyway. Now, please bear in mind, it is a representation. It's to give the idea that this is a 185. I'm not going to sit here and say this is an accurate rendition, because it probably isn't. Right, before we move on, I just want to show you some updates on this. So you can see now I've glue and glazed those windows. They have dipped in a little bit, which I'm a bit disappointed about. I've tried, I might even see if I can put a bit more over the top to bring it out a little bit, but I've heard stories that it goes a bit cloudy if you do that. But, I've also put these bits on the front of the bogies. There's some steps, and there is a bit which goes back a bit, so that's on both sides on both carriages, and that one as well. And as you can see, I've now fixed the chassis in, and if you notice, hopefully you can see inside there, there is an interior. Ah, there you go. It's a interior. I'm not going to be lighting these purely because it's going to be complicated putting pickups on these. I mean, I could use the DCC Concepts wipers. That is a way of doing it, and I might come back to it in the future, but at the moment I'm not going to be lighting them. Okay, so they are now ready for transfers. Now, I must admit, I've had a bit of an issue with transfers. I bought a particular type of paper, or two types of paper to be honest, in readiness to put the transfers on, and both, would you believe it, both, after using them for years and years and years and years, have decided that they're not going to work on this occasion, and I've had some serious issues with it. Now, I normally use a brand called MIB, but I can't find it at the moment, and so I bought what I could see. So I'm not going to show you, but it's actually all reacted quite badly, and then when I put them in water, some transfers like hot water or warm water, some transfers like cold water. These are cold water ones, but as soon as I sort of started to pull the backing off, it literally just went like that and just went into a big mushy mess. Right, welcome back. So you can see I've now made up the chassis unit for the class 185. This will be the middle coach, and I've also got the motor unit from the class 350, and there is also a brass strip there. Now, I've 3D printed these two clips which hold the motor in place, and then I've put a piece of tape to stop it from going sideways. Now, the ends of these brass strips touch the edge of this metal, and I've ground off the end to create a nice fresh surface, but I don't know what this metal is. I wouldn't have thought it would be a pure lead. Lead's known for its weight, for adding weight, but it could be a lead composite, I don't know, to make it safe to touch and handle, but it's very difficult to solder to, and to get solder to stick to it and stay stuck is quite a feat. So that's why this place there is screwed in, and it's holding these brass contacts up to the end of there. Now, I can, if you notice, I've drilled a couple of holes there. If connections between this part and this part become fragile, I can put a piece of wire through there, wrap it round and twist on both parts, and then sort of sneak it down and solder to these brass strips. So that could work. Now, you'll also notice the bogie there. Now, that's got two brass pickups on it, and they would go through these slots. However, I did make a bit of a boo-boo when I did this. You'll notice that the bogie mount is in a different position to where I originally planned it to be. Again, looking at the whole project, I see things and I think, oh, that's not right, and then I go about changing it. And that's how design works, but it has left this sort of slot just there. Now, I could fill that up, there is no doubt about that, but as considering I've gone to all this extra, I'm just going to leave it, to be honest. So if I try to put more slots either side there, it's going to make the chassis quite weak in this area. So I'm reluctant to do that. So I'll probably just drill a couple of holes, one either side, for wires to come through there, solder to those two tabs on there, which I'll probably either have to remove and solder to that bit or bend down slightly so they're not in the way, and then solder the other end of the wire to these terminals here. So hopefully that should get power to this block. Now, how does it then get to the decoder? Well, you have this micro board, and you might notice just there is a slot. Now, if I can hold the camera correctly in the right, there it is, you'll see in there is a motor terminal, and obviously the other one is just there. Now, those two pins on that bit there clip around those two motor terminals, kind of like that, you get the idea. And then we're left with these two posts there, and they grip via these micro screws, which you can probably just about see there, to that bit, and then the connection is then made to the board. Now, you'll notice in these two opposite corners there is a piece of something to solder to, and that is on both sides. Yeah, so that would then touch those two posts. Now, my only problem is these two screws that I've got here don't stretch far enough to hold this board down in place well enough. So I might just put a tiny little bit of extra solder on both of those two extra corner pieces, just so that the heads of those just touch something and then hold that down in place. And then obviously after that, the decoder then goes into this socket just there. Well, finally, I've managed to get the 185 onto the track, and it's been quite a challenge, and I'll explain that in a minute. So let's just have a look at it running first of all. It's not perfect, and on the test track it does stall a couple of times, and I'll tell you the reason for that in a minute. But you can see it is actually going. See, it went straight through that dead section there. All right, if I stop it, the decoder settings are quite harsh at the moment, so they will need to be adjusted for that. And we seem to have stalled. There we go. There is a reason for why it's doing that, and I'll explain. But it goes. And I'll just stop it over there. Those two end carriages. Now, I've decided to put the motor in the middle, purely because it's just a balanced push-pull, if you like. It probably would have made more sense if I put it just here where the toilet would have gone, but I made the conscious decision to put it in the middle. Now, I've learnt quite a lot about how to use this motor. If I can get it out in one go. There we go. Right, so, I mean, Graham Farish ones have these two little lugs that sort of fit over the top of those lumps in the metal there, and same both sides there. And if you've got all four in place, they work well. But, you know, these, I'm quite happy with the way that these sort of clips hold the motor in. And then I've just put a bit of tape around one part just to hold it, to stop it from moving side to side. Now, I said I've learned quite a bit about this. First of all, I put a pickup bogie on there, and for some reason I couldn't find the proper wheels. Now, they've normally got like a tube, plastic tube running between them, so the two sets of wheels, two halves of wheels are separated. And so obviously those two and those two are joined, and then that connects directly to that and to that. So I couldn't find them. I don't know where they've gone, and if I do find them, I'll put them on. So I found another powered bogie. It was a Pendolino bogie, actually. So I thought if I just solder the wires directly to that, that should be no problems at all. It works on the Pendolino. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't work here. But it was short after short after short. So in the end, I got a little bit fed up with it, so I just took it off. So the only pickup is here. That's the reason why it was stalling as it was going around. Now, I'll explain what I'm going to do about that shortly, but there's two more things I want to point out to you. If you decide to do this, one time I put it on the track, and this has taken me all week, by the way, probably about an hour or so most nights. It got to the corners, and then I just got the whirring as if it weren't strong enough to push. And what was happening was the bogie was so rigid that actually it couldn't tilt like that. So it hit an ever so slight incline. Now, bear in mind, this is polystyrene and it will flex ever so slightly. As far as I'm aware, the floor is, well, reasonably flat for a 1950s house. But nevertheless, one bogie hit, and one bogie wasn't strong enough to pull three carriages. So I went back in and I filed a little bit off the plastic chassis. So I'd obviously made the plastic chassis a tad thick. So once I've done that, well, you've seen it goes round and also tilts that way as well. And I think that's quite important. That is very loose now, and it needs to be. Likewise, that is very loose. And, you know, so I'm quite happy with that. Now, the other thing as well is I was watching Chris Haag the other day, and he's bought a resin printer and started making carriages and locomotives and all sorts. And one of his tips was to, instead of having the little pin to put in there, was just literally just glue a piece of, well, I think he's using card, but I thought a bit of plastic card on there, and it literally does work. And if I need to remove it, I can just put a scalpel in there and just snap it off. And that's absolutely fine. And the idea being it just holds the bogies on. Well, you can see that's not falling off. The thing I've learnt was it was derailing a little bit. And as you know, I make all my own couplings these days. And what I decided to do was to lengthen this coupling. Now, there's no sort of bar coming down here on the 185s like there is on the 350s. So I can't hide the coupling in the bar going across, if you know what I'm trying to say. I think it's the housing for where the cables join from each carriage to one another. So what I've discovered was, obviously, because this is a longer coach, the distance from there to there is longer. So therefore, when a carriage goes around the corner, it kicks out further, meaning the coaches tilt ever so slightly. And that partly might have been the part of the problem why it was lifting off the track. So I decided to move the couplings as close as I dared to the bogie. As you can see, that's the closest I could possibly get it without the bogie, without fouling the bogie. And then I've just lengthened these connecting rods. And again, as you've seen, it seems to work quite well. So because there's no bar, I decided to make this smaller unit, which is basically two sides to make a 90 degree. And then I put a cap on it and a hole, one of those. So you can see there's two sides there and there's a hole in the middle. And obviously this piece there'll be a bar that you put inside there. So a piece of square rod or round rod, whatever it might be, just over 1.5 millimeters. Even 1 millimeter will do the job. You put that through the hole and then cut it off and then just glue it like so. So the bar goes in with the coupling in place, cut it off and then put a tiny dab of super glue. Now what I did find was super glue was going through the hole and then gluing the coupling. Now I've tried to put as much glue on as I dare, but as soon as I put it on, I turn it over, and that does tend to work, although I've had one or two couplings stick and I've had to take them off and do them again, but it does work. So, you know, it's like I said, it's been a bit of a challenge, I'm not going to lie, and I will dare say I'm learning more and more as I go along. I mean, even getting the motor to run has been a bit of an issue, but I'm so glad at the moment that it's actually working. Now, what am I going to do with the one set of pickups on one bogie? Well, I'm going to look for some insulated wheels, first of all. I'm going to the NEC next week. So I will have a look round, not only for a pack of regular carriage wheels, because obviously I need some more, but I'm also going to look for some insulated wheels, see if anybody does those, and then I can just put them on, and that will help. Certainly, because obviously those dead areas, then I've got, because this is quite a wide bogie gap between the two bogies, that is. So there shouldn't be any issues, but also what I might see if I can get is a stay alive. I don't know at the moment where to solder a stay alive to this decoder. That's white tack, by the way, so that will just come off. But I will go and see YouTube's where I usually get a lot of my decoders from, and I dare say they will help me to know which pads to solder those to. And they probably will sell me the stay lives at the same time, so it should be all right. The other thing, I did say that I'm not able to put the livery on it yet. I've had a lot of problems with the decals, as I said in a previous clip. So they're going to stay silver for a tiny bit longer. I'm hoping that I've just ordered some other paper, which was a little bit more expensive, and the reviews on it are amazing. So I will try that. It's a brand I've not used again before. I do try and stick with the brands I know, but, you know, I think Amazon buy bulk of something, and when it runs out, they switch to something else if they can't get the same thing. So we'll see how it goes. And the next time you see the train, hopefully it will have a livery on it, and likewise the 730 as well, which has also caused one or two issues, which I'm not going to go into. Anyway, I will leave the video there. I'll leave some more clips of this train running here on this particular loop, and I'll also leave another couple of clips of the 323. Anyway, you take care of yourself, and I will see you again very, very soon here on Piccadilly. Take care. Bye-bye.